Can you hear me?
Yes, I do so.
Yeah, great. Yeah. I think Jody will take a minute this time. Okay, probably it's on
Yes, I can
time.
take this, Jin.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Okay, let's start actually. So welcome to this auto interim meeting. This I believe this is the fourth interim meeting focused on working group follow-up of OEM transport. And my name is Qing Wu, and my co-chair is Mohammed. And so note where I apply. Probably you know you already get recorded. And for code of conduct, please be polite, professional to your fellows, and also IPR rules apply. This is a noteware, and please follow this. If you're not ready, please read this. This is agenda for today's discussion, and we will, focus on two working group draft, and for each draft we'll spend 25 minutes and to discuss what is the open issue we already have, and what is the issue we already closed. And at the end, we will leave 5 minutes to discuss whether any idea about the security privacy we can prepare for the next interim. And since the focus is OEM and transport, and for the next step, actually we first we need to make sure we resolve all the open issue. Probably we encourage author to prepare the new version at the end of this week, and we can launch the second working last call for both draft at the beginning of next week. But we need additional reviewer for each draft, OEM and transport. And if you are volunteer, please let us know. And the goal is to finalize this draft, make it ready for publication at the first week of the June. So any agenda batch? If no, actually, let's move on. Let's have a first topic discussion, auto OEM. Jason, the floor is yours. Do you want to share by yourself? Share a slide.
Hello.
Jason, we can hear you.
Okay. So maybe I can just start to share the slides right now. Let me start. I don't see the slide on the so should I just share my screen or?
Yeah, you can share your screen or you share a slide.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we can see now.
Okay. So yeah, just to make some update about the progress on the ALTO data AI management of the the protocol document, and we have uploaded a new version to address the working lifestyle reviews and some other comments made on the mailing and the GitHub issues. So here's a link about the latest versions and the copy on the GitHub, and also the YAML modules defined by this document. So a quick summary about the current progress is so we already received 3 working lifestyle reviews from the TSVR, Young Doctor reviews, and the OPS Director reviews, and for the TSVR, so the thing is, so this is already so there's no blocking issues made by the sensor, so it's already ready. So we have to get the confirmation to just response to him to answer some clarifications about the text. And for the OPS director reviews, so all the comments have been fully addressed, so we have sent the response to them and get the confirmation. For the young data reviews, we almost address the comments. We send this response to Andy and get some further feedback, and I think there's no object, but on the GitHub issues tickets, we track some further discussion. So there's still have some pending issues. So we will discuss this later. And for some additional reviews made by working chairs, so we'll track the progress on the GitHub issue ticket. And yes, there are 2 open issues we need to address, but I think it's no blocking issues. But so all the 3 pending issues is just some enhancement about this document. Also, we have to run individual reviews by Louis, and if we address the comments. So here's a link about all the GitHub issues. So we use GitHub issues to check out the comments and further discussions. So we have 31 issues in total, and of course almost all of them, but there's still 3 open issues on the GitHub ticket. So we try to discuss it today, so in this internal meeting. So for the first one, it's about so this open issue is about the clarification about the new type defines we introduced in the new version. So the comments are originally made by Andy from his young doctor reviews. So I think we need to clarify some the semantics and the encoded formats about some type defines. So we introduced 2 new type defines, which is the source ID and the role name. So they have the pattern constraints, but we don't have any text to clarify why we added pattern constraints. So one simple solution that we can just remove this pattern constraints, because from some discussions, we don't find any special reasons in the practice implementation that so I don't think there's special reason that to clarify why we need this, but we also want to put this into this discussion. So want to see if any working members have some specific reasons. So just think we need the pattern constraints. If not, we just simply remove it.
Okay, for the first issue and any comments? actually my suggestion, I'm why we need to this constraint for the pattern design. Yeah, maybe simple solution is just remove this pattern. I think
The
reasonable
only
to
reason may be for some intention may need this pattern. I think it depends on uh, the underlying system about the intention. For example, for
Jason,
the
we have comments from Matt, but I cannot hear clearly.
oh yeah, sorry, I also cannot hear Matt very clearly.
Matt, can you add your comments in the chat room?
Yeah, I think the basic comment here is that we don't need to over specify. That means that if there is no, I would say, link with what we have in the base specs, there is no need to the constraints as much as what we have here. So my recommendation is that to go remove the current pattern.
Great. Richard, do you have additional comments?
A very quick question is the following. Even if you remove the pattern, I presume you still have the type, right? So therefore, source ID still be type string, and you specify length, which is from 1 to max. And then you're going to have role name, same thing. My question is, typically when you define these type of things, and for example, here, let's really look at it. And here for the source ID is a string with length from 1 to max. And therefore role name would also be from 1 to max. Typically, as a typical programmer, and I will look and say, okay, does really mean that the source ID and role name should be somehow at least related. At least they should be the same length, right? Otherwise, one is max, second one also max. Should the first one be max 1, second one be max 2? And if they are same max, that really mean eventually maybe role name can become source ID. So typically you define the philosophy I follow all the time. I think that's one thing I learned by early days in my career when joining Yale, working people like Paul Hudak and so on. They always argue essentially is a major part of program language or formal system is you use the syntax to convey semantics, right? You define the syntax, and the syntax trying to convey the semantics. Here, do I really get the reading that the source ID and role name somehow are related? So that's why they have the same length. And if they have the same length, then can you define a single one? So therefore, that's a single max length. Otherwise, why do they have the same length?
Let me understand. So because the source ID and role name, they have the same encoding format. So why this is are you suggesting we just use a single common type design to define the test? I'm not sure my understanding is correct.
It depends on how much semantics you want to do, right? And if you think source ID and role name are just typical identifier you use, just define identifier, and then they all have same length. And then eventually you all do that. And I think that's the way it works. Or here, really type define, you want to come with the semantics, and that's a different one, right? So I'm just trying to really get to the why you single out source ID and role name. You're going to have a bunch of other essential types of variables, right? You introduce a new type. Why this type? What's the relationship between different types?
I think the only reason is that so these comments made by Andrew, so the Young Doctor reviews in every type you use in the Young module, you need to specify the semantics on the description. Yeah. So for the source ID and role name, yeah, even they have the same encoding format, but the usage of them in the different context, so they have the different semantics. So you need to use a description statement to clarify it.
Sure, even that one I'm fine. For example, then I probably would define, for example, source ID, role name clearly as some kind of what they call L value, right? And left-hand side value, they define some kind of identifier. So therefore, probably maximum length would be, identifier name, max, identifier length. And then role name also similar, because you can also have maximum length, which can be buffer size, right? And you can have the variable name, you can have the value, which can be way longer, typical identifier names, 32, 64, 128, and values can be 4K or whatever. I'm just trying to really convey as much semantics as possible.
Yeah,
so here,
yeah,
for example,
yeah, Richard. I think the problem we have here is that we don't have any authoritative text to put there to constrain, I would say, the semantic nor the format of this histotype. So we have two options where we go back to what we have in the formal design that simply say that the source ID and the role name are just strings. But the problem is that with the Yang doctors and with the best practices for, I would say, defining Yang models, they don't like if you just give the, I would say, just plain string and then implement that. So that they want to have some constraints. And the only constraint we have for these two, given the I would say, the authoritative specification document we have in the ALTO, is that it must not be a null string. That means that at minimum it should have a length of 1. The max here does not mean that you will have the same max value between the source ID and the role name. All what it says is that it can be a length that starts from 1 to the maximum of the allowed type, and the type here is a string. So the question for us here in the for the working group, whether should we add something more which is not today in the specification, or can we just simply say that this is the minimum we can do? We don't know if there are other constraints, and then we can leave it for the future. And that's the question we need to answer today.
Sure.
And I remember that we had this discussion last time in the last interim, and we had a homework from Jensen to justify the rationale why we have the pattern, and they don't know that we come up with a justification for it. So I think that we just need to be pragmatic here and move forward and just remove the pattern, maintain the type defs. That is always better than the string. For the implementation, they can always do a deviation, a refinement, and so on, and that's fine. I don't think that this deserves to be, I would say, more discussion than we have so far for it.
Sure. Look, my only small suggestion, of course, that's totally according the authors can do is maybe don't. By the way, what's the value of the max? Really is really the maximum of total string type by itself, or max really is defined in your own?
Yeah.
No, this is the maximum of the allowed type.
Right, but a string can be like a 4K, right? Do we want to allow source ID to be so large?
We are going back to the question. Do we have any limitation in the current specification of the length? Yes, we know that we have some. I would say that the string should not be that long, because otherwise we'll be consuming a lot of resources. If we have any recommended value, we can pick it, but I don't think that we have any random one, unless we decide to say that with the if we do make a parallel with the other attributes we have in the current specification, and we have a maximum for those, let's use the same max, and then we will have a bounded string value there. Right. But did we have this bounded for the others? I don't think so. I think that the length 1 to max is also used for the other ones, if I'm not mistaken, Jensen?
Yeah, I was thinking for it.
I think it's the same length that we have for the other ones.
Okay. But sounds like if I were implementer, or I want to do, for example, of course, that might be go to the details. And sometimes, for example, if it is I'm doing like a very simple parser Yang model, I probably need to allocate this like a source ID, like giant array, right? That's kind of like a weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
practice,
okay.
Yeah,
just
you may have this issue. Yeah.
So Richard, do you prefer that we? Yeah, going back. Yeah, just we keep this one before we decide to move on it. So Richard, what would be, I would say, your because whatever recommendation we will do for these two lifts, we should be consistent with the other ones that we have there. So please, if you can go to the I would say to the document and review it part of the second working class call. That will be really good to have more eyes on it. So just as a reminder, as Sheen mentioned in the introduction slides, we need at least 3 reviewers for his documents. So far, what we have only the directorate and also the chairs, so it would be good to have other ones. So if you can commit, please, to be one of these 3 reviewers for the OIM, that will be really great.
Okay, great, good idea. I'll do that.
Okay, so for the minutes, please, if you can just record that we have Richard to be coming to review the OIM draft during the second working class call. That will be good. Thank you, and thank you, Jordi, for noting this. So, as we are on it, can we please have 2 additional reviewer volunteers for the OIM document?
Yes, I think we can. So thanks, Richard, to volunteer.
So I think, Matt, are you asking for 2 more volunteers?
Yes. We need at least 2 names, so that we are really, I would say, good on having 3 names and 3 reviews from fresh eyes, and we are confident that the second working class call is really reflecting what the working involves. So please, if we can have 2 additional volunteers, that will help us move forward.
Yeah.
So
could you repeat what's the deadline for this? I think we mentioned at the beginning. Is that for the second working group last call? 2205?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So within a week. Okay. Yeah. So so we have one volunteer, which is Richard. We need 2 more volunteers. I can try my best to be one of those. Any other volunteers?
Yeah, I also volunteer to review this.
I would preferably having one more, which is not working on as Chin, please.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Chin. But you can always review. So that's.
Maybe Louis or Sabine can volunteer.
Sabine, how is that for you? Where is you have?
Sabine is a good choice because she knows all these variables and which is
we have Louis on the queue. Yeah.
Yeah, Louis already reviewed, right? I believe.
Yeah, just to comment, I already reviewed the document, so I think I'm not eligible.
Yeah, myself does the same thing actually. So, yeah. So, so Sabine, how is are you available to do this? To do the review? Okay, I can take this offline and come up with 2 more reviewers for this, Matt. Let me take this as an action item. Yeah, I'll follow up with the group.
Okay, thank you, Jordi.
Thank you. Let's proceed.
Yeah, Jensen, please continue.
Yeah, so let me move forward. So for the second open issue, say about the security consideration. So this comment also made by Matt. So it's actually discussing on the GitHub issue tickets, and right now we have the early proposal about how to revise it. It's about 2 parts. Like that, we need to set the proper sorry, some typos. So we need to set some proper NSM extensions for the authentication related data nodes. And right now, I think all the authentication related data nodes are already protected by the reusable groupings. It is defined in some other drafts, but for some choices defined in this document, so it may be augmented by some other extension of modules. So this will introduce some authentication related data nodes. So we need to be careful. So when the extension modules define this kind of the data nodes, so they need to set the proper ASM extension. So we mentioned this consideration on the new revisions, and another one is about for some writable data nodes. So they may have some negative effects if not set properly. We list two examples, like the feed interval and pull interval, defining the data source listener, if the operator does not set this to data nodes properly. For example, it sets this to data nodes too large or too small, so it may track some may lead to some issues on the system performance and some other test solutions. So they just leave some security considerations on the CARES document. But just one question about this. So maybe if we want to fully express this, we can define some configurable threshold for this kind of the data node. But I'm not sure if so. I think this one is also can be related to the several issues about the notification. But for the concrete solutions, yeah, I don't know if the current solution is already enough. So we just want some discussions and some further actual reviews from some security firms. Yeah.
So Richard, you have
any
comments?
I think just here you are really talking about two different issues. Secure
Yeah,
authentication or authorization are one issues, and the integrity or safety of the system is second issue. So they are really two different issues, and you might want to separate into. I don't think they are security considerations. The first one looks like to be security consideration. The second one is more like operational issues, right? And because second one really is operational. I do have some more comments about the operational issues. For example, the feed interval and pull interval, I can understand, right? For example, whenever you have data type, of course, it's a young model essentially is only define use standard syntax and define some things. For example, feed interval cannot be -1, and that doesn't make sense, right? So therefore, the value must be valid, and it should not be 0. What's the meaning of 0, or what's the meaning of -1, and so on. So therefore, I think that's issue number one. Basically, it's integrity of the value. And then sometimes in real systems, what you do is there are two ways. For example, because the feed interval oftentimes you want this is OEM, so therefore you want some kind of, unless when you discuss about operational issues, is you might have for example, multiple system, multiple entities getting involved. For example, one part of management comes from the operator. For example, the ISP who really controls the feed interval. So therefore, they can set some kind of upper bound and lower bound. You cannot be faster than 1 millisecond or 100 milliseconds per polling interval, or cannot be lower, and so on. And so therefore, you can put some kind of upper bound. And then you might have second entity which might really go in and modify variable. So therefore, essentially, it is hierarchical policy, but essentially you're defining operational or defining policy. So therefore, the policy will have some kind of hierarchy, and higher level policies might define, for example, some range and which constrain the second level of policy. The second level policy can be set by a separate operator or separate entity, or can be really controlled, for example, by some kind of dynamic algorithm, right? For example, pull interval will be adjusted because of some kind of learning algorithm. So therefore, I think those are the issues. I don't know if you want to go into the discussion, and if you really want to do, and you really give upper bound, lower bound, or whatever bound, essentially is higher level policy and a lower level policy. So that probably makes more sense. But you probably want to clarify what intended. Just only give a upper bound, lower bound, probably not good, right? And what exactly is the correct value of upper bound or lower bound?
Okay, So yeah, you're suggesting that so the first one is this part should not be in the security consideration, but we can add some discussion on the operational considerations, right? And
Right.
then we can discuss some further. We can have some further discussion on this part.
Right, because basic feed interval, put interval, essential sometimes they might be different variables, and basically higher level policies constrain the scope of second level. So therefore, you might separate different variables and control it. So at least that's the way it works. So operational, at least I would suggest, right, and operational, and then allow safety. So put intervals bound, you probably make, like, for example, controlled by one entity, and then, but this one actually should be also tied up with your security policy, right? Essential authentication and authorization. Who can write which part, and upper level can control the lower bound.
Yeah, add ideas.
Richard, I'm not sure to understand your proposal here. Just for the context. So what this section is trying to do is to identify the I would say in the young data model, the data nodes that are sensitive. That means that assuming that you without making an assumption how the authorization is done, how the all the I would say your system is set up, there may be some, I would say, some vulnerabilities that are related to some of the data nodes. And just giving you, I would say, in the chat, the overall, I would say, template, which should be followed by all the young, I would say, designers to call out the, I would say, the sensitive data nodes. So it's not, I would say, it's not practical just to go and say that we don't have any issue with the model, because this is not true, and we cannot just say that we have the appropriate, I would say, management system to manage the authorization and the I would say correct access and utilization of the nodes.
Right.
So we don't need to be comprehensive or exhaustive, but only to identify the ones that are critical. And the one which is, for example, displayed by Jensen here is about the poll interval. It's even if you allow, for example, a range of values, there are still some vulnerabilities related to it, because it depends. There is no recommended value that you can set to be safe.
Right.
If you set it lower, then you can have more frequency in polling the source. If you set it high, then you will end up having stale data in your system, and then all the auto machinery will be biased. So even with a range, we still have a problem if there is, I would say, a malicious user who is accessing to that data. So in place, we have the recommendation to use secure means to access to that. But in the same time, we need to call out the sensitive, I would say, information that should be protected, even or without the use of the I would say the access control, which is also displayed here by Jensen in this slide. So I don't know what is currently your proposal for this section by introducing the operational, I would say, parameters and so on.
Sure.
So Richard, just additional clarify, actually, for this security section, we do have, template that we can follow, young data model security template. And as Matt clarified, we just need to, focus on young data models that are sensitive. We identify the sensitive and provide a, additional description.
Right. Yeah, let me take a look at the template, and then I can share my comment in my review. How about that? We don't have to be delayed over here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. I think that's good. Yeah. So
Jason, you can
maybe
continue.
we can move forward for the last open issues about the notification. So there's also this format. So consider to add some notifications that can be triggered when some threshold of the resource limits are there. So right now we only identified two thresholds, which is the resource memory limit and the upstream limit. And but we have some follow-up discussion on the GitHub issues. So the two found another co-author, so mentioned that maybe we can, so some notification thresholds already be defined by some other modules, for example, the alert modules. So maybe we can still reuse them, but so we're still checking this there are modules to see how to really use them. So I also want to see some feedback from the working group. So if you have some other suggestions about this.
So Richard, you have a comments?
Quick common question, and like I said, I should review the document, but I haven't fully. Are you talking about notification to add for resource limits only, or
Yes.
you already have notifications for other things as well? For example, doesn't have to be resource limit exceeded. It can be, for example, people set a notification value of less than 10 milliseconds, and therefore you should be notified. Someone might be doing something potentially dangerous. So are you talking about generic notification mechanism? Essentially anything, somehow there's some
I think it's
potential
that if
case,
some
or
other,
you're only adding this?
Yeah, so because we see some other modules, for example, the alarm modules, maybe they already defined a more concrete, more general solutions about the notifications. So we can use them. For example, like you mentioned about not just the resource limit, also some others.
Yeah, for example, if the auto server crashed, or some branches of auto server whatever disappeared, or cost map no longer updated or whatever, would you also send a notification in your system?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now, when this auto server crashes, I'm not sure if the YARN model can handle this. Right now we only can handle some when some information resource crash. But if the whole auto server crash, I think the question is that if the auto server crash, whether the
So Jason, I guess the way I'm looking at it is following. Right. So typical, for example, if I were going to use the Zookeeper or whatever, all this Google stuff, so oftentimes the way it works is, and I would basically use the YARN model as a way of, like Zookeeper, and essentially is I have an overall structure, and I would link the data to the management OEM system of individual. For example, I'm network 1, and I have 5, for example, auto servers, and I have one branch or one whatever branch for every single server. Whenever that server is disconnected, that branch will be disappeared. And then I was okay, there's a alarm, so therefore I will send notification, right? So that's a standard connection-oriented design model of Zookeeper. But that's exactly whenever this information not refreshed, and then would trigger alarm, right? Trigger essential state, and so therefore you know what happened. I'm just saying overall notification mechanism.
Jason, probably we should take to the list. I think we already run out of time for this topic.
Okay.
But my understanding is for the parameter you propose is not a generic. It's specific to some memory resource usage, and you put the limit. So let's take it to the list and move to the next topic. Okay.
Could you put this question in the mailing list, and then Jensen and others can follow up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we already have to discuss on the GitHub issues. I can forward the draft to the meetings, then we can.
Yeah,
go
actually,
on.
yeah. Connect that with the GitHub ticket. Yeah, make sure it's linked. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Let me see. I think it's probably it. Yeah, I think this is one. Wait, do you see the screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Let me figure. Okay. I think this is it. Okay, so basically, today I'm going to go over the updates for the new transport documents since the last interim meeting for the working group documents, and this is the state of the document in before the last interim meeting, and this is basically the state of the document before this interim meeting, and except for the HTTP-DR review that we haven't really going down the detail with Martin. For the other documents, for the other reviews, we have at least pinned the reviewers, and for the ops DR review and for the TSV art review, we have got confirmation from the authors that they considered the updates has addressed their comments. And for the ops DR review, I think Shen has replied publicly, but for the TSVR art, I basically sent a personal email to Bernard, and he replied also in personal email. So probably we need to ask him to basically respond publicly. I think that's the state for the document. And as a major roadblockers here, I think it's still the HP DIR review. And so last interim meeting we has mentioned that there are some basically issues pointed out in the HPDR review, and so after the last interim meeting, we have made some updates. I think for some of the comments, they can be addressed like by some editorial changes. For example, we have proposed a list of terms to define the terms that, so we don't basically when we do the specification, we refine the tones that we, for example, don't use terms such as should be like, and we are using terms that, for example, must have the format of. I think that probably would solve the problem, or like specification by example issue. And also we have a list of terms defined in section 2.2, and that's basically would solve the inconsistency of terms issue. And I think Lachlan has replied with Martin about the new design that we do not need to actually query one, do not need to involve one round of query to actually fetch the data. So I think the only remaining issue is how to basically we need to confirm with Martin whether the proposed solution to use HTTP2 and 3 server push, and also whether and also to justify why we want to bound the session to a single persistent connection. I think that's the only remaining problems until we can make another revision. Yep. Yeah, I think that's basically the current state.
Okay.
Just one clarification question, Kai, about the single, I would say, session. Last time we agreed to include, I would say, some motivation text to explain the rationale why we wanted to have a single one. Do you confirm that you have this text in the new version or not yet?
I don't think so. I probably need to check the document. I'm not sure whether, for example, Lachlan or Richard has made some updates.
No, we don't have this yet, so we should really add this part starting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, we really should add it. But Matt, we sent an email to Martin Thompson. We want to have a very quick chat with him, like within the next 1 or 2 days. We just sent an email maybe like around half an hour ago or 1 hour ago, and after he's also okay with, and then we can add a paragraph. Of course, we'll be more than happy to discuss about why session-based it makes sense. It adds complexity, but it is actually also time can be very good too. Because basically means the connectivity is also associated with essentially semantics.
Okay, thank you for this update, Richard. But anyway, so if there's any modification to be made, please make sure to ship this by the end of the week so that we can follow the plan we had for the second working class call. And by the way, we also need the 3 volunteers for this draft as well. So people who are on the, I would say, on the bridge, please, if you can commit to review this document, that would be really good to have more eyes on it, because we don't have much reviews from the working group itself, rather than the chairs and the director reviewers. So we would appreciate if you can volunteer to review.
Right. Would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Jason,
So,
Luis Mahedi, do you have time to review these? So any volunteer?
Yeah, I can also volunteer. Some of us already did the review, like Luis mentioned. I reviewed these 2 documents prior to the first working group last call. I'm happy to do another. Well, it's challenging because it's only a few days, I guess, of margin here, and but I'll do my best to do a review. Yeah, the challenge is the timing. I think it's a little bit tight, especially because there are many things going on. So I'm sure it's the same situation for others. Is the timeline strict, or can we buy us a little bit more time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Matt, I'm saying if it's okay with you, and can we? I do know a couple of people who are very good in HTTP. They are not a working group, but can we also approach those other people to review our document because they're very good? And
yes,
I can.
yes. Yeah, the more eyes we have, this is really good for us to be sure, and to back up that during the ATF last call that we have more eyes on it. So that would be great if you can chase them. Yeah.
Okay. I'll ping. I'll find one or 2 people because they are very good in HTTP. They may not be total expert on auto, but they're very good expert in terms of HTTP, which is what we need as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. Let's coordinate that offline and make sure that we have a good number of reviewers. So thank you. If you want to CC me on that, Richard, and I'll so that we can coordinate, making sure that we have enough people. Yeah, and also for the OEM, we'll do the same. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Thanks, Judy, to have to find a volunteer.
Okay, so thank you both the teams for the I would say the authors of both drafts. So the next step will be to wait for the revised versions, and then we will kick off the working of last call next week. Okay, so unless there is any other points, we can move to the next point, Sheen.
Yeah, maybe let me share the chair slides again. We still have some time, and I think for the next step, we'll prepare another interim meeting focused on security, privacy, and I want to know anyone have a work plan to work on this and a proposal you want to share.
I think Ayub has a thing, but
Luis,
I actually want. Oh, Luis, go ahead.
I see Luis Ayub. Luis, you are first.
Yes. Well, my idea would be to report some security concerns that we have from the integration of Alto for the Telefonica CDN. So some ideas that have gone to our minds after this integration. So maybe I can report on that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Luis. Ayub?
So thank you. As I sent in the email, so basically we are now 3 tentative ideas that we are trying to explore further, and we're hoping to receive some feedback and support from the ALTO members in order to prioritize which idea is more relevant and how to proceed next.
Yeah, thanks, Ayub. Maybe you can share some of your further idea on the list to say how this can fit into the auto. So Richard?
Yeah, I just want to give a very quick update. I would like to write, of course, working with Ayub and Luis. I want to write up a little bit of security and privacy analysis and a little bit design as well, in particular in the context of multi-domain, because multi-domain and there are different security privacies. For some network, they are most important. For some other ones, for example, the CERN and LTC1, they're less strict because they're relatively open public networks. So therefore, I think I would like to add a little bit of that particular multi-domain perspective. I'll write up and I'll share with the group.
Okay, thank you. Kai? Kai, we cannot hear you.
Because I think our team is working on some basically some an algorithm called gradient boosting, which can basically generate multiple maps based on a single auto map, and then it will still be able to keep some statistical features of the original map, but then it can basically generate some other values than the true value of the map. And I'm wondering whether this will be a useful case for example, when the clients may have some privacy issues with the network.
Yeah, maybe you can share your use case on the list. We can discuss.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's all for today's discussion. And so Matt, do you have any last word?
No, I don't have any, I would say, further comments on it. So I'm looking forward to see the updated version of the documents and also the structuring of the next interim meeting, because this will fit the discussion we'll have on the future of the working group. So please get engaged in it if we want to see the, more activities in the future.
Yeah. So thanks everyone. I think we can conclude this interim meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.